Greg. Would you lead us in prayer?
Father, we just want to say that we are thankful for this special privilege. In this world today, we are looking for leaders. We are looking for godly leaders, leaders that have a heart to serve, leaders that will lead us through the epidemic that we're in, and with the chaos that is going on, good leaders will bring us through. And we pray that as we listen to each one of the candidates, that, dear Lord, we will see their heart. We will hear what they have to give us. And we pray that, dear Lord, we will be able to ascertain what is the best candidate that will lead the city of DeSoto. And we ask this in the name of our King and High Priest, Jesus. Amen.
He's homegrown from Mansville. It impressed me so much, but here, I want to just read this briefly to you. He was elected judge by the citizens of Tarrant County, Precinct 7, to serve as their Justice of the Peace Court representative. And then Judge Sanders, a product of Fort Worth ISD, graduated from Paul Lawrence Dunbar before starting his collegiate matriculation at Tarrant County College, later finishing his bachelor's degree at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He has enjoyed a successful career in supply chain and performance manufacturing management with such companies as Lockheed Martin and General Motors. Sanders leveraged his work experiences as a leader, an astute observer, and problem solver to be a force of change in the world of politics. He says, my leadership qualities, temperament, and myriad professional experience are key strengths I bring to any task. Sanders and his 4 sisters, anchored by loving parents, make up a family that prides itself on hard work and community service. So without further introduction, I'm going to turn it over into the hands of our moderator, Judge Kenneth Sanders.
Good evening. I want to thank Dynamic DeSoto for this opportunity to interact with the citizens of DeSoto and help present the candidates who have stepped up to be leaders within the community of DeSoto. As we get started, what I would like to do is give each candidate a chance to introduce themselves. And in the introduction, I want you to tell us how long you've been a resident of DeSoto and what is the top thing, a top motivating factor why you've chosen to run for office. And so we will first start with Ms. Rachel Proctor.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all, Dynamic DeSoto, for this opportunity. I'm Rachel Proctor. I previously served on the DeSoto City Council for 6 years, 3 of those which I served as Mayor Pro Tem. I actually grew up here in the city of DeSoto. My family came to DeSoto when I was about in the 3rd grade. So actually, I've been a resident of DeSoto for probably over 30 years, I guess, if you do the math on that. And I also graduated from DeSoto High School. And so as mayor, I plan to bring vision to DeSoto by taking us, I would say, back to the basics. And when we talk about back to the basics, it's kind of like when you're in grade school, one of the first things that you're taught are your ABCs. And so my ABCs will be accountability, bringing us all together, and communication. And so I'm really passionate about joining hands with you, the community of DeSoto, and creating a vision and a path that moves us forward. And so to your question, Judge, that is why I'm running. And so I'm asking for your vote for Rachel Proctor on February 2nd. And I definitely look forward to unpacking more tonight and throughout the remainder of this campaign season.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Proctor. Next up is Kenzie Moore III.
Thank you very much. Before I get started, may I make a comment on the state of our nation? And please give me a few seconds, because I really do believe we're in a very critical time. What has happened yesterday and what's happening in our country today is disturbing to all of us. But I do believe that we have things to do in our country as well as here in our city. I want to ask that we pray for our country. I want to also ask that we pray for our city. because things that happen outside of us also affects us on the inside. Now, your question is, how long have I been in DeSoto? Well, I've been in DeSoto since 1986 with me and my family. That's in excess of 35 years. My history, though, my origin is from South Central Los Angeles. And so I come from a very deep background of large metropolitan city. I moved here in DeSoto, or let's say in Texas, in 1976 to attend college and settled in the great city of DeSoto, not knowing anything about DeSoto. I have been here serving in this city for quite some time through many different aspects. I not only served on the city council since 2017, but I also served on the school board from 2008 and 2014. And yet prior to that, I was serving in DeSoto without being an elected official. I consider myself a servant leader. I've been involved with the DeSoto Education Foundation. I was president of that. I've been involved with the WINGS program, which stands for Where I Now Gain Success for Young Men and Women who needed a second chance, and was able to come back to DeSoto and get their diploma. And I was not only an advisor on that, but I was also very instrumental with Kathy Gold in getting that program started. I've also served in many capacities within the city of DeSoto, and I think that's what's important. How have we served this city over the lifetime that we've been here? And I'm sure we'll get more into that. And you asked, why do I want to be mayor? Those are some of the reasons, but the real reason right now is that I strongly believe our city needs leadership. It needs stability. It needs to be able to move forward and get back the premier city that we once was. I know it was that when I lived here back in the 80s. And I know at some point we may have lost a step or two, but I'm convinced and I believe that our mayor, Curtis D. McCowan, was leading us in that direction. We were getting there. And I'm convinced we will continue to get there because we have a blueprint. That blueprint is our 5-year strategic plan, and that we will implement, and even to the degree that we've already started implementing. And we will get more into that as well. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity to speak, as well as to share with you what do I see and how do I see we can move DeSoto forward.
Okay, all right. Next candidate is Mr. John McCaleb.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, first I'd like to say that my condolences to Mayor McCowan's family and the Zander family too. They were great legacy for marshaling in a good city manager coming in with Brandon Wright. But I just wanted to first say something about our excellent leaders that we had that we've lost recently. I've been here for 7 years in DeSoto. I have recently got onto the Park Development and Recreation Board, currently serving as the secretary. I have also been president of the organization, and during that time, I helped initiate the free Wi-Fi in the city parks. I got that idea by seeing the North Dallas area cities getting it free, and we weren't in the city of DeSoto. And I started pushing it through the park board, and then with help from Renee Johnson, the director at the time, get with the city communication department, and they took it from there. They worked with Spectrum, and so this private-public relationship, we now have Wi-Fi in our city parks. It also helps with our tourism dollars too. Tourism is a major thing. If you think about all the people that came to the BMX recently, we had the state championship, and we had people from all the way from El Paso to come. And that's what helps serves us with the tax dollars that we were getting from the tourism and the hotels along 35. So I am glad to be part of DeSoto. I want to work with an eye for the parks area, but also learn more about the budget and marriage with the survey that we've had recently. Try to get those two together in sync. Thank you.
John, one more quick question. How long have you been on the park board?
5 years.
Okay, all right. Our next candidate is Mr. Calvin Graham.
Calvin, can you hear? Calvin Graham. He's not responding now.
All right, so while Calvin trying gets connected, we're gonna move forward with Letitia Hughes.
Good
Oh, I
evening.
see his picture. I saw Calvin's picture.
I
Did you see it?
look like his microphone is not on.
Let me see if I can. Correct, can you see him?
No, he doesn't have his mic on. He's muted and I can't unmute him.
Okay, I'm gonna call him. Call him, but he's
Can
not
we
in.
move on to Letitia while we're waiting?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I am Letitia Hughes, and I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity. I've been a resident here for almost 20 years. I've raised my children in the high schools here. I have not had any official, I haven't served in any official capacity. Hello? I'm sorry. I have not. Should I wait? I think Mr. Graham is talking.
Continue, Ms. Hughes.
Okay. I haven't served in any official capacity, but I have been a part of any and almost everything that I could be involved in when it comes to the schools, volunteering, boosters, assisting with youth sports, I forget the name of it, official name, but the dinner and dine that the mayor put in place, the festivals, the arts, everything that I could be a part of, I have tried to offer my services because I feel like I am a servant. I'm a real estate broker here in DeSoto, and I'm excited about having the opportunity to work with everyone on the council. My vision is to help bring businesses. I'm excited about new businesses and helping with the arts and doing what we can to, like Kenzie mentioned earlier, bring the city back to what it was in the early 90s like we saw it before. And I think that I'm excited and looking forward to that opportunity. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Graham, are you able to speak now?
Okay, I have Mr. Graham still. Mr. Graham, are you there? Hello, Mr. Graham?
Hello.
Okay, and he's still having technical difficulties, but can you repeat that question so he can respond to it? I think you can hear him, right?
Yes.
Are you picking me up, Ms. Harris?
We can hear you now, but let's go ahead on and continue to answer the question. You're the last one. Can you repeat that question that you had asked the other candidates?
So, Mr. Graham, I want you to give a brief introduction of yourself, and in that introduction, tell us why you're running and how long have you lived in DeSoto?
So I returned to DeSoto back in 1988 after a long tenure with corporate America, working at various different locations around the country. We came back to the DeSoto area because this is the area of origin, quite frankly. I grew up in East Texas, far East Texas. I like to say in the resort area of Lake Opine, if anybody knows where that is. I've been in the area working marketing and owning business of real estate and lending initiatives. I actually decided to pursue this position on the council because over the years, since '88, I have watched the development, somewhat, maybe I should say, demise, and there was an opportunity to, I think, get involved. And what I bring into the table basically would be a vision of business focus type of policies that I believe would transform DeSoto into a major area again. So that's basically the overview.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So to the citizens who are participating or listening in, just to recap, we have two candidates who are running for mayor. That is Rachel Proctor and Mr. Kenzie Moore. The other three candidates we have are running for City Council, place 7, and they are John McCaleb, Calvin Graham, and Ms. Letitia Hughes. So the next question will go to the two candidates running for mayor. We will start with Mr. Kenzie Moore first. So, Mr. Moore, because you've already served on the City Council, can you tell us what did you accomplish when you were serving on City Council? You have to unmute it, Mr. Moore. You have to unmute your mic.
Is that better, sir?
Yes.
Okay, and let me start off in saying, sir, that's a very good question, and I appreciate the opportunity to share because so much has happened over the last 3 years within our city, and I think we can be very proud of the progress that we have made. Let's just talk about for the last year. Let me tell you what I think is the #1 accomplishment that has taken place in the city of DeSoto, and that is the hiring of our new city manager, Brandon Wright. He's been here for roughly less than a year. And we have made a lot of accomplishment. And I want to say that nothing can be accomplished in a city without a great city manager who works very closely with City Council. And you may ask then, well, Kenzie, what has been accomplished? Let me share with you the #1 issue that we are facing right now, and that is the containment of the virus, the coronavirus. And what are we doing in order to address that? We have put things in place to address that virus by looking at what the county guidelines are, and that is to wear masks, to social distance, to try to keep our people safe in home or even outside the home. Containing the virus is the #1 thing. And with the CARES Act that we now have, we're doing exactly that and working with the city. Now, I can run down a few things that has been accomplished just within 1 year. We've made accomplishment with things that's called Mosley Pool that we are doing. We have what's called a community grant, which is through the CARES grant. And with that grant, Mr. Sanders, we are providing funds for low-income people who are having difficulties with their mortgage and their rent and their water bill. We set up what's called a small business subcommittee that's providing funds to small businesses who are having challenges as well, because this virus has impacted all of us. Things are not the same anymore, but that's impacting our small businesses. So we're providing funds for small businesses to help them with their payroll and also with their rent. And so those are the immediate things that we are doing. I'd like to also tell you about our mental health services that we're providing for our people. That is those who are struggling with mental health, those who could possibly be impacted in a way that leaves them without any assistance and can be out on the streets because they don't have the support. We've also passed many things. We passed what's called the WMB policy that's providing more funds for minority and women businesses here in DeSoto. That's just a few things that we're doing. And yes, I've been on City Council. I've been on there, and I've been there with the leadership of not only City Council, but with Mayor Curtis McCowan, who has always been our leader and directed us to always put the citizens first and make sure that what we do brings value and is aligned to our strategic plan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, Ms. Proctor, same question. Since you've served on the City Council previously, discuss what are some of the specific accomplishments you had during your time serving on City Council?
Certainly. Thank you, Judge. One of the things that I'm most proud of as having served on City Council is being able to champion a payday loan ordinance. And with this particular ordinance, it established business regulations for payday lending institutions, title loan companies, things of that nature, to reduce those abusive behaviors that we were starting to see trends in our community and those practices of predatory lending institutions in our community. And so again, a lot of it limited the types of regulations and the types of, when we talk about credit access type businesses, it also made them apply to where they had to actually register. And so it limited the types of how many times they were able to charge them and different things like that in terms of all of that. And so it helped us to keep a handle and a pulse on those things with the goal of reducing those types of abusive behaviors in our city. Also, another thing that I'm very proud to have had an opportunity to champion is also our first and second phases of our transportation program, in which gave benefits to low to moderate income residents to help them with assistance with transportation. So some of that came through usage of our CDBG funds and things like that to develop a taxi service for people to get things with essential services such as doctor's appointments, grocery store appointments, to the pharmacy. And a part of that second phase of the program is what we see now with Star Transportation, where it expanded that to more so to the general population. Lastly, I would say that I was very instrumental in the Grow DeSoto Market, the business incubator. Our late Mayor McCowan, she was very instrumental in bringing leadership together when we found out that the old Ace Hardware building, and if you're, of course, if you're a resident, you know where the old Ace Hardware building was there on Beltline Road. And had it not been for leadership coming together to think creatively and think outside of the box, that hardware store would have turned into a dollar store. And so myself and one of the former board members actually presented the concept of the Grow DeSoto Marketplace Incubator to be able to provide the, to lower the barriers to entry for a lot of businesses, with the hopes that we could help them to grow, and then within 2 years to actually move out of the incubator and move into a brick and mortar space within the city of DeSoto. So those are some of the things that I very much so been very proud of. And again, if elected mayor, one of the things that I would love to do to add on to that was our original intent for the Grow DeSoto Marketplace was to actually establish a formal business education program that the entire community business community could actually be a part of. And so we would love to be able to continue to help them to truly grow DeSoto. And so those are some of the things that I'm very proud to have had a hand in championing on my time on city council.
All right, thank you. So next question will go to the city council candidates. We will start with Mr. Calvin Graham. The question I have for you, sir, is what makes you a better candidate than the other two candidates who are running for this city council position? Mr. Graham? All right, while we wait.
Hold on, there he is. There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, very good then. Sorry about this difficulties, guys. I will try to get it corrected, but beyond my technical ability, apparently. I look back at, 35 plus years of, running my operation, mortgage, real estate. We've been involved in many transactions. I think that I bring to the table a great deal of business, know-how, innovative type of business-centric types of things that I bring that will lead us to policies that would generate considerably amount of return on our investment. I just think it's the expertise, the skill sets that I have, gained throughout this 3+ decades in the business to proactively go out and develop relationships that would generate revenue and improve the image of the city. So, that's how I think that, I would be beneficial in this position.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Ms. Hughes. Can you answer that question? Tell us what makes you a better candidate than the other two candidates who are running for this council position?
Well, I would like to say that I am very efficient. I also believe it's important to be able to have a balance. I have been able to not only work in the community, I've raised 4 children in the community. I have participated in various activities with youth sports. I'm very involved in my church. I'm on several ministries there. And I think, and then at the real estate, my office is here. So I think it's important to have a balance, because when you are speaking on behalf of others, you have to be able to meet everyone in every capacity to the best of your ability on every level. So I feel that being here as long as I have and being actively involved in all of the different situations and scenarios that I've been able to be involved in will really help me and help me to be that voice that needs to be heard. I haven't held any official positions, but I do believe that I'm very capable of handling the task and, conglomerating with all of the other council members and the mayors and everyone that's going to help us to get DeSoto where we all have that vision for it to be.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hughes. Now, Mr. John McCaleb, can you answer the same question? What makes you better than the other candidates who are running for this council position?
Thank you for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, one of my other ventures was the 12 Hills Nature Center in Oak Cliff. During my time there, I was treasurer of the group, a nonprofit. We raised over $200,000 by working with the citizens there to have a 5-acre park. This particular park backs up to Rosemont Elementary, St. Cecilia School, and Chris Simos Primary. Mostly minority, 75% minority Latino students and parents worked together to create this 5-acre park. And so they had the thought and trust in me to be a fiduciary person, a ethical person, to make sure that that money was going to the right places. I also worked with the city of Dallas, the county of Dallas, and the DISD school district, and with a team of those people to get this park in. That park also has about 1,200 students a year that go through there, and we teach the teachers, we send them to a seminary, and they learn how to teach these children about nature and not to be afraid of nature. Also, I have worked with the Oak Cliff Lions Club, in which I was president of that club, and we raised $42,000 for our charities, selling $1 tickets. And with our money, we have been able to give it to some of our charities, and one of them is the Diabetic and Crippled Children's Camp in Kerrville. Sometimes these parents do never have a time off from their children of need. And so these 2 weeks are God sent for these family and caregivers, so these children can go there and commiserate with themselves, but I mean, have a good time, because going there and seeing these children would come to your heart of seeing how much fun that they're having together. Another part that I have been in the Southwest Dallas Democrats, and being in part of the Southwest Dallas Democrats, I was able to be on the scholarship board, the Annie Hubner Scholarship Board, to give out money to deserving children of high school that are going to college. I think that's well worth my time and effort. That's some of the reasons why I think that I have the background to be a good leader, by knowing people in my community.
Okay, all right. The next questions will go to the 2 candidates running for mayor. We will start with Mr. Moore answering this question. With the aging population of some citizens in DeSoto, do you have a plan or a vision to provide services uniquely to help enrich the lives of some of the senior citizens in DeSoto?
Thank you for that question. And yes, we do. And we have already started implementing it. Excuse me, sir. One of the things we've done, at this present time, we have a senior citizen center, which is really not adequate for our citizens that we have now. The unfortunate part of that is that Corona has made it even more difficult for our senior citizens to get out and to be able to enjoy themselves and to be able to socialize. What the city is doing is that we have purchased land where we are building a new and better senior citizen center for our citizens. And I got to tell you, they're pretty excited about it. They have also participated in the design of that senior citizen center. You know, I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but one of the joys you will find is that when you go to our senior citizen center, they are very engaged and very excited. They know a lot what's going on in the city, and they will tell you what they need. And one of the things that they want is space to be able to play cards, to be able to have their dance parties, to be able to celebrate with one another. But let me tell you, our senior citizens are very active in our community in more ways than one. I can just about tell you a lot of them are watching this Zoom meeting right now. We make sure that our seniors are taken care of, but the most important thing that we have to do for our senior citizens to make sure that they're getting health care and that they can get it without it being a burden on them. I know in some cases that is being delivered to them. When I was one time, I used to deliver what's called Meals on Wheels here in DeSoto. It was with the Dallas Visiting Nurse Association. And my mother and I, who's also a senior, we would deliver Meals on Wheels to the seniors here in DeSoto. And we would often go to the senior citizen. And it was always amazing to see how excited they were to get that meal. Because for some of them, it was probably their only real meal that they would have that day. But to go into some of the nursing homes, to go into some of the centers and see our senior citizens, and to see how happy they are, but more importantly, to see how secure and safe they feel within DeSoto. So I would continue that, but I would also encourage us to get involved with our seniors, to let them know how much we appreciate them and what they have done for us. Because I can tell you, they've been in DeSoto a lot longer than we have.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Judge, if I may intervene, since we reached our limit of 100 on this call, Dynamic DeSoto Candidates Forum is on Facebook Live. So if they'll go to Facebook Live, if they could, those that are on this call, if you can text your colleagues or friends, whatever, Dynamic DeSoto Candidates Forum on today's date, live. That's Dynamic DeSoto Candidates Forum on Facebook Live. Then you'll be able to listen that way. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Ms. Proctor, if you can speak to what your plans are for the aging population in DeSoto, what kind of programs you like to implement to help continue the quality of life for the senior citizens in DeSoto?
Yes, thank you, Judge, for the question. I am very much so concerned about our senior population. Two of the most vulnerable populations, I believe, in any community are our young people and our senior citizens. And I definitely believe that it is incumbent upon us as leaders of a community to make sure that we are able to provide them with the best quality of life through innovative programming and to make sure that their needs are met in terms of what they need. I did serve on council during the time when that land was purchased in terms of exploring the expansion of our senior center. And I am absolutely happy to hear that those things are moving forward and that the seniors are being, their input is being taken into account in terms of what that looks like as well. Also, I would say in addition to that, that I would also like to form a senior citizens council. So that particular council would be somebody, again, that would help be a liaison to the city council, to our senior population, to make sure that we have a pulse on what the real needs are for our community, our senior community in real time. Because sometimes I think as leaders, we assume that we know what the real challenges are that they're having. And a lot of times, because things change, things move so fast, things shift, a lot of times those things will change. And so we want to make sure that we have consistent communication and making sure that they have a voice at the table as we're making decisions and creating policy that impacts their quality of life. I always say that the decisions that we make as a city council are the ones that you all, the residents, must live with. And so it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are always taking into account the real needs, especially during this particular pandemic, to make sure that, again, because a lot of people are having to receive medications and different things like that by mail. And so even looking at how that's impacting our senior residents on a very granular level, meaning from street to street, block to block, neighborhood to neighborhood, to make sure that, again, we as a city council are providing them with the specific things that they need. And so one of those things, again, in addition to the expansion of our current senior center, would be to create that senior citizens council. And a part of that I want to also add into that would be to create an arm of that senior citizens council that also keeps a pulse on the reports from our nursing homes, to make sure that any of the nursing homes that are located within our community are of the highest quality, and to make sure that we are keeping an eye on what's going on there as well.
Okay, all right. Quick follow-up question to both candidates running for mayor. And we'll start with you, Ms. Proctor. Mosley Pool, it normally closes right at the end of the summer when kids go back to school. But yet and still, we have a lot of senior citizens who enjoy Mosley Pool. Is it possible to keep it open later into the fall when it's still warm outside?
I would say that anything is possible. I think we would have to, of course, explore with any decision in changing hours. We need to look at the anything that may happen as a regard to that change. But I definitely would love to be able to expand those hours. It would be something that I would definitely be in favor of, to be able to expand those hours, to be able to provide that additional time for leisure and exercise and all of that for our senior citizens. So I would absolutely be in favor of that, to be able to get more use out of that particular facility within our community. And I think our residents would be excited to hear about that as well.
Mr. Moore.
Yes, thank you for the question. And it's interesting that you brought up Mosley Pool. We are in the process of doing a renovation of that pool that is in excess of $6 million, where it'd be expanded and it would be able to accommodate more kids and also adults right there. But in regard to your question, would I be in favor of expanding the hours in the, I believe you said in the fall? Is that what you said, sir?
Yeah, expanding the season. And
I would be honest with you, I would not be in favor of that because of health reasons for our seniors, because the question is directed towards seniors, not just the adults or the kids. I think we have to consider the impact of the change in weather on our seniors and the time of night in which we're talking about. I would be in favor of ensuring that we have senior days. We have days set aside specifically for our seniors, because I would imagine a lot of our seniors don't necessarily want to be hanging around the pool with a bunch of young people. But I believe we can designate time specifically for them so that they can get the true benefit of the pool and the expansion that's going to take place there too. So to answer your question, I'm all for setting time aside for them, but I would not encourage us to extend the hour time. And let's be honest, our seniors are not going to be hanging out at the pool at 7, 8 o'clock at night. They will be there during the day and during the summertime, but I do believe we should set aside days and times specifically for them.
And so just a follow-up point to make, I mean, as it relates to Mosley Pool,
yes, sir.
It normally closes around the first week of August, but usually well after Labor Day, we still have warm temperatures even after students go back to school, in which seniors could use Mosley Pool. And so that was the point that was trying to be made. But
okay, and I can agree with that, because I agree, in Texas, it's hot until September.
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm thinking in terms of the latter part of the year when the weather isn't so good.
Oh,
Yes, I agree that the pool should stay open as long as it's hot in the state of Texas, and in particular in DeSoto. Yes, but I also want to reiterate, even with the expansion of that time, I still believe that we can designate time just for our seniors, where they can have access and be able to take advantage of the pool in the company of people like them. And if we want to expand it to August, that's fine. It's still hot, and we are getting the best use out of it. And I can't wait till we start and complete that project at the pool. I think the citizens of DeSoto are going to really love it.
Okay, forgive me. I want to just jump in real fast. Rachel needed to have some more time as well. So are you going to ask the same question of her?
Ms. Proctor, you can expound, addressing the fact that even after Labor Day and into the months of September, it's still warm enough, even though the kids are back at school, that the seniors could still benefit from use of Mosley Pool.
Right, correct. And my understanding of the question was just as you stated, Judge Sanders, in terms of extending the time in terms of the time of year, not the time of day. So that was what I was speaking to. I do agree that, of course, policy wise, and who else will be allowed into the pool at the same time. I think that that's a little bit of common sense policy that I think we as a council or those that are making those decisions would take into consideration as we're looking at extending those hours throughout the year in terms of the actual months. But I definitely think that if it can be utilized during that time, within reason, I think we get that part. I think if it can be utilized, I think that would be a good benefit for our seniors to have that additional time. Because again, if the kids are back in school, then they possibly would not necessarily be sharing that space with the children at that time. So I think it would definitely be something that we should consider.
Okay, great. All right, the next question goes to the candidates running for city council. And we will start with Mr. John McCaleb. Question is, what is your strategy to help bring quality businesses to DeSoto? When we talk about quality businesses, we're talking about something other than dollar stores and fast food restaurants.
Well, previously I was talking about the BMX track. Currently, there is not a bicycle manufacturing within the city. And if we're having all these people throughout the state come here to use that track, why don't we have a manufacturing of those type of bicycles? Also, they could go ahead and have their clothing or other retail items with it. It's something that if we already have them captured here, why can't we go ahead and get some of those captured dollars? I think if we continue to show DeSoto's hospitality through our hotels, we can start bringing in some other tourist dollars in other ways. I know the baseball field is out there, and we're bringing a lot of softball teams in here. So if we can continue to do that. I also think that one of the things that the city has had started, and that was the vendor, get my notes right, the vendor program, in which it's a kind of like a university program to get these vendors up to date. And so they can be able to work with the city and being able to bid on their projects. Once they know the background of it and know what the city wants, then that vendor can be able to supply the city with those items. Be able to say that we have a program, we're certified, and we can help the city. And doing that with the DeSoto Marketplace and having them set up over there, I know these are small parts, but that makes a bigger part. If we can continue to work with the citizens and small business, I think that it'll helpful in the long run. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Graham, can you answer that same question?
Absolutely. I am so delighted to have an opportunity to respond to that question, because just for in our this conversation, there's been a great deal of noise, but about many things. Nothing has been said, about what I think that the critical issues are, the critical challenges that we have in DeSoto. How do we grow DeSoto? How do we get out of this paralysis that we are in? My thoughts are that we're at a crossroads right now, and we have to find a way to deal with the challenges and master them. The conversations that should be at the forefront right now, and the only conversations that are important in my mind is the education component and also economic development. The education component, quite frankly, is the driver to all of the other services that the city provides. Without a vibrant education component, the other things are not going to thrive. Industry, companies will not come to any area where we have a inferior education system, period. It's just a case. Home buyers will not purchase. They will avoid areas where education is failing. Therefore, the education piece, guys, is the driver. Everything else is dependent on that. And, I don't hear anybody talking about that. And that's been the problem that we're having with the DeSoto historically. These are the tough issues. These are the core issues that need to be addressed. And everybody's talking about things around the peripheral, the fun thing. But if you're going to grow this city to where it is a vibrant city, where it competes again with Frisco and Plano and those cities that are noteworthy, we're going to have to make some difficult choices with regards to how we address the education piece.
I'm sorry, your time, that's time.
Okay, very well.
Sorry, thank you. Mr. Kenneth?
Judge, unmute.
You're on mute.
So Ms. Hughes, same question. What is your strategy to help bring quality businesses to DeSoto?
I think we should take a very practical approach. I would like to, and thank you for the question. I would like to, of course, if I win, get with the council members and we get with the economic development department after we've met with with the people of the city to find out what is it that their heart desires. I know, I've heard mention of a Target, a water park, a movie theater. We would love to see those things. I think what we need to do is hear the people, get together with our economic planning development and the rest of council and figure out not why we don't have these things, but how. The question has been asked too long, why not? Why haven't we? Why aren't we like the other cities that we see around us evolving? DeSoto needs to be there. So the question no longer needs to be why, it needs to be how. How can we make this happen? How can we get these businesses in here? What is it that we need to plan strategically to bring them in? And that would be my focus. I'm ready to sit down at the table and roll up my sleeves and figure out a game plan. Let's get these businesses in here and we'll flourish.
Okay, great. Back to our two candidates running for mayor. DeSoto has a slogan of One DeSoto. What would you do as mayor to unite the divided communities of DeSoto? And also, what will you do to build trust with the residents of DeSoto? Let's start with you, Ms. Proctor?
I love this question, so thank you for the question. One of the points in my platform, when I mentioned earlier in my introduction, which was the ABCs, right? The B of that is bringing everyone together. And so some of the things that I believe are key is increasing transparency and inclusion of community stakeholders. I think that a lot of times our community does not feel like they have a council or, or just leadership that they can come to. And so one of the things that I want to make sure that we have in our community, and I've proven this through it, even in the past, I've proven this, making sure that we have very transparent financial practices and also an open city government. I believe that if nothing else, our community should be able to expect us as elected leadership to conduct ourselves with integrity. And if and when things do arise that challenge us, that our response means everything. And our citizens are watching that in terms of how we respond as leadership when things that that breach the trust in our community happen, and they are watching. And so I believe that, again, you should feel comfortable coming to your leadership to be able to voice your concerns, and not only just voice your concerns, but know that your concerns aren't going to stop there, but there will be an intentional effort to make sure that those things are done. Also, I believe when we talk about One DeSoto, that includes our school district. I'm a DeSoto High School graduate, and I love DeSoto, this community of DeSoto. And so one of the things that I really want to do in terms of really bringing us together, because at the end of the day, when we talk about the city and the school district, we are both serving the same constituents. We know that we don't govern the school district. We cannot tell them what to do. We can suggest, we can recommend, but we don't govern. However, the relationship that we have in the communication between what we're doing is critical. And so one of the things that I want to do and look at as mayor is really reviving that relationship that we have with our school board, meaning to have regular meetings, and not just meeting to say we met, but creating real actionable meetings that we can walk away with fruit from those meetings. Also, I would love for the city council and the school board to actually create a joint strategic plan, which is similar to what the city of Lancaster has with their school district. And so that way we are actually working on common goals. And when we say One DeSoto, we are truly helping to support our school district versus criticizing our school district, and helping to fill in the gaps that they may be experiencing as a result of some of the challenges that they're currently facing. And so I think when we talk about strengthening our community and rebuilding that trust, I believe that those are all ways that we can actually do that.
Right. Now, Mr. Moore, same question. What will you do to live out that slogan of One DeSoto and help unite some of the divided communities within DeSoto?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Senator, if I have time left, I'd like to go back to your question about the business development, if possible, if you're not going to address that. But let me start off like this. When you elect someone for mayor, you deserve a leader who has unquestionable integrity. Someone that you can trust, and someone that you believe that's going to lead your city and put the city first. Someone who's going to always be there to answer the difficult questions, and the ones that's going to be there to help us lead and go through the challenging times in which we face. So long as I've been in public office, that's exactly who I am. And everyone knows me for that there. I will even sometimes disagree with you, but I will respect you and listen to you. When you talk about transparency, we have tremendous amount of transparency right now within our city government. We have transparency throughout our financial systems. We have transparency throughout some of our other entities that we have within the city. Transparency is a great thing. We know that our citizens at any given time can come and ask and request anything they want to regarding our city. Accountability. We have accountability in place. Mayor Curtis-Steen McCowan was very, very instrumental and very concerned about that transparency and that accountability. And she made sure that we had systems in place to ensure that if there's any request from any of our citizens regarding our city, it's right there for them. She had an open door policy, and that's the same thing that I would have, where our citizens can come up to city council, request a meeting with us, and discuss any issues that they may feel that they need to discuss with us. And when you talk about making one DeSoto, we are one DeSoto. We're one DeSoto, not just in the city, but we're also one DeSoto when it comes to the school board. We work very closely with them even now. I can tell you that the mayor and I had monthly meetings, even to this day, with the school board president, as well as the superintendent, as well as with the chamber, as well as with economic development. We met and we still meet every month to discuss what's going on in our city and how can we make sure that we're on the same page and that we are one. I hope, sir, that you give us a chance to address that issue that you asked to the other candidates in regard to economic development. Thank you.
And so, question to both of the mayor candidates. What we're going to talk about business development. What is your vision to increase business development within the city of DeSoto and to bring businesses like H-E-B and Whole Foods to DeSoto? And so, Mr. Moore, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you very much. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about this because oftentimes people say, why DeSoto doesn't have this and why DeSoto doesn't have that. Let me give a little brief background on the question of why. You know, we have what's called ordinance on our books in DeSoto that prevents certain types of businesses from coming to DeSoto and preventing from certain citizens from doing things. One of the things we have to do is look at all the ordinance that are on the books, that's been on the books for 20, 30 years that prevent developers and retailers from coming to our city. It's become very difficult for them because when they try to come and try to build certain things and do certain things, there's restrictions on them that cost them more money. But let me say to you that there is one thing that I'm very proud of. We have what's called a PID, a Public Improvement District, right down there near Daniel in Westmoreland. This is a $400 million project. Let me repeat, $400 million project that will consist of mixed-use development. It will consist of some of the things that the people of DeSoto has wanted for a very long time. I personally and another city council member, Andre Berg, were very instrumental in working with the developers as well as with the city to bring this project together. We know that it will transform our city. It's going to take some time, but we're going to get there. Let me say again, this will be a mixed-use development that will bring the nice restaurants, that would also bring retail, mixed-use development. It will also bring medical district there as well. And so we're excited about that. And it will also be bringing restaurants right there at that corridor. And I really do believe that there's another great jewel of our city that we have yet to take advantage of. And that is Thorntree Country Club, which is another great place in which we can build around to make our city more attractive. A lot of us don't realize that Thorntree Country Club is really open to the public and that we can go there and utilize the services there. But just imagine with me for a minute. Just imagine with me for a minute. Look at that project on Daniel and Westmoreland and the expansion of it going west and all that we can do there. And if you live in DeSoto, you know what that land is like. It's there for us. Now we must protect it and develop it in a way in which it best shows DeSoto. And I believe that that is one of the areas that's going to bring major development to our city. Now, there are other areas as well that we can do, but we must look at the ordinance that is crippling our businesses in DeSoto. And that's the reason why I will put together a committee of developers and city to look at those ordinances and let's remove them and let's see what we can do to expand the growth and development of our city.
Ms. Proctor?
Yes, thank you for the question. And I love this question as it pertains to business development because I myself am an entrepreneur and love to, help to develop business and love just entrepreneurship in general. One of the things that I think I see for DeSoto and some of the challenges that DeSoto has had as it pertains to really attracting the things that we want to see is the fact that we have not had a true long-range plan for development. When we look at places, a lot of times I've heard a lot of our residents compare us to Cedar Hill or look at Plano or South Lake or different places like that in the development that we are now seeing the fruit of. A lot of that is the result, and I won't say a lot of it, I will say it is the result of them having a long-range strategic plan for development. Those things did not happen within the last 5 years or even the last decade. A lot of those plans are 30 to 20 years in the making, and they're just now coming into fruition. But I think for us, we've got to really ask ourselves, who does DeSoto truly want to be when we grow up? Meaning, what do we want the vibe here to be like? What do we want the feel to be like? What do we want the end result to feel like? And I believe when you have a better picture of what we want the overall end result to be, then we know what roads will not get us there. One of the things that I see for DeSoto also is looking at how can we better, again, put a overall vision in place. I've seen us do things like Hampton Road study, and all of those things are good. But a lot of it becomes, when you look at our city and you step back, we have immaculate, beautiful neighborhoods, but our main street, so to speak, does not match the quality and the level that we have in the neighborhoods that surround our main street. And so we've got to look at, say, putting a plan in place and a better blueprint to say, this is what we will accept. Because a lot of what I've seen is that because we don't really have that nailed down on what we want the end result to be, we start to accept any type of development. And again, things begin to come piecemeal. So I would love for us to take that strategic plan that we already have in place, which I was a proponent and a champion because we did not have a strategic plan in place prior to 2019. And I was always very vocal about the fact that we needed a long-range plan for development to be able to guide us in the right direction, because we can tell people that that is not something we'll accept because it's not in our plan. Another piece to that is, once we've identified the opportunities for an arts district, for a medical district, and all of these things that we can have, is to do something like a vision bus tour to bring people in to our community, because a lot of time perception of DeSoto is what keeps developers out of DeSoto. But when they come in and actually see the diamond in the rough that is our community, a lot of those perceptions have changed. And I personally have been a witness to that. And so we've got to make sure that we know what we want from our community to be, so that anything that goes against that, we don't accept it.
Aye.
Thank you. So this next question is to the candidates running for city council. Name 3 things you plan to address in the first 15 months if elected to serve. We will start with Ms. Hughes.
3 things that I would like to address if elected. Well, first, and I hate to be a browbeater and continue on to economic development, that is my top priority. I'm excited hearing Kenzie say that we needed to revisit the restrictions and the ordinances. I think that's important. And I'm very happy about that. I was happy to hear Rachel's plan, to have a plan. That's awesome. The second thing would be to help cut back on crime, work with the police our neighborhoods to make sure they're safe, to make sure that we don't have to be concerned with a Ring doorbell and we're capturing, different young people walking through and checking doors to break in. We've got to find a system and a way to help cut back on some crime. So I would love to be able to set up a task force, find a way that we can kind of curtail some of that. The next thing I would like to do is to help with the arts. I like what DeSoto has done with the theater and the arts, and I would love to be a part of that and to expound on the theater arts.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hughes. Mr. Graham, can you answer the same question?
Yes, sir. Be delighted to. I don't think that there are but a couple of issues that are outstanding. I talked about them before. We have to find a way to elevate, to improve, to where it is able to attract. It becomes a magnet. That's imperative. We've got to be able to find or influence the system to where we can bring the finest educators, researchers in to drive this education piece. The second thing is the economic development piece. As I said before, the economic development piece is really dependent on the education piece. Those are the only conversation that we should be talking about in order to move DeSoto, forward. The other issues are all secondary. The other issues will fall in line if we can get the education piece right. The economic development piece will come into place. It's just that simple. I think that's what we need to be focused on. That's where the conversation needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCaleb.
Thank you for the question. My ideas would be more communication. We, as a candidate, I've been trying to get in touch with the HOA presidents or other people, and it's been very difficult because they have changed, the names have changed in the city. And so my proposal would be to take a city councilman's location in the city and go door to door, go door knocking, make sure that the residents are being able to communicate with the city through Wi-Fi or emails, because I think that Matt Smith does a great job right now in putting out information about COVID-19. And I want that to be throughout the city. I have a great HOA president, and he's able to send that out. And I think that if we are able to communicate with each other, because sometimes I don't know what's going on in Briarwood, that would be something that I would be interested in. So if we're being able to communicate would be the number one. Plus, it needs to be updated on our site, our DeSoto site, because I was looking at the crime statistics in there in the police, and it hadn't been updated since April of 2017. So we have to continue to update our system. We've got to be able to communicate. And if we're going to start working on these large projects, big developers are putting those in, we need to make sure that we have infrastructure that can handle it. Right now, our infrastructure is almost maxed out. We need to, if we're going to have new developers, our infrastructure needs to be taken care of. One of the ideas on the survey is that we need help with our alleyways. Our alleyways are old and they're coming apart, just like mine in the backyard. I have rebarb coming through. So we need to continue to do the basics, and that is take care of our substructure. And if we're able to do some type of substructure like we do over at Royor Trail, is where underneath you have a large substructure coming from the TRA, but then on top you have a nice walkway or trail. So those avenues and that we can be able to do two things with our substructure and a park on the upside, that would be something I would think that would be perfect. But I'm only going to be here for 3 months, so it depends if I'll be reelected next time. Thank you.
All right. Well, this is a follow-up question to all three candidates running for city council. Yes, you're completing an unfinished term. So if elected, do you plan to run for a full term when this term expires? Mr. Caleb, we'll start with you.
I hope so. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Graham?
I think the question is for those guys is if they're going to run for the term, even if I win, I will be running for as the incumbent for the next term. I think that answered your question.
Okay. And Ms. Hughes?
Okay. Yes, I do intend to run again. I've got a lot of work to do.
Okay. All right. Great. Now, back to the two candidates who are running for mayor. So, in all cities, crime is a major concern for our citizens. And so, what plans do you have, if any, to address crime within DeSoto? We'll start with you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still with you. Let me start off by saying this here, that like with all cities, we have challenges with law enforcement, and to some degree. That's not to say that all law enforcement is bad. What I would like to see is I would like to see a community where the majority of the police officers live right here in DeSoto. That's a challenge that most majority cities have right now, and trying to get the police officers who service our city live within our cities and try to create incentives for that. We right now have a police department that is majority Anglo, and they don't live here in DeSoto. That's something that we need to address. I truly believe that our present police chief, Chief Costa, has a program where he has made recruitment a priority. And the priority is to try to hire more people of color as well as women here in DeSoto. We actually have a shortage of police officers right now. If you look at the type of crime that we are struggling with in DeSoto right now, a lot of it has to do with nuisance type crime, loud music. Some of it has to do with break-ins, and a lot of it has to do with, let me say, nonviolent crimes. However, recently in our country and as well as in our county, we've seen an uptick in domestic violence throughout the county. And that's a large part is because of the coronavirus. We have a very strong committee here in DeSoto. That is our Domestic Violence Advisory Board that works along with our police officers to try to address and try to tackle those type of crimes as they come up and deal with them. Unfortunately, some of that stuff is on the rise, but here in DeSoto, we've also had a decrease in domestic violent crimes of roughly about 17%. But what I want to see, I personally want to see more police officers on the street. I want to see more police officers riding through our community. I want to see more police officers assigned to the subdivisions where they really get to know the community. What I would like to do is bring in more police officers into DeSoto. And I believe we can do that and have them visible, because when you see a cop and you see a police officer, it deters the possibility of any crime in our city. And so one of the things that I plan to do is work with our city manager to see how can we get more police officers on the street, even though we don't have as much as we want to, but make them more visible.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Proctor?
Yes, in terms of addressing the issue of crime, I think one of the first things that we have to look at in terms of our jurisdiction as a council would be to look at budgeting and looking at what we have budgeted now meeting the needs of our community as it pertains to law enforcement. One of the things that I have not actually ever heard from a constituent as I've been out in the community and just over time is that they see too many police officers in their community. Generally, it is the opposite, that they don't see enough police officers in their community. And so one of the things that I would love to do is to be able to have a sit down and a meeting with our chief as well as with our city council to look at what we have right now in place currently actually meeting the needs of our community. Another thing that I would love to see us be able to do is to bolster our community's policing efforts through the expansion of programming and different policies, because policy does drive everything. Now, another piece to that is looking at how we as a community can also play a part in making sure our neighborhoods are safe and maintaining the integrity of our neighborhoods. So in addition to that, making sure that we have enough funding available in our budgets to be able to do that, is also to look at revitalizing our neighborhood watch programs, as well as revitalizing the DeSoto Police Department's video database program. Now, if you're not familiar with what that video database program is, it is actually a program that was started and it was overseen by Captain Terry Baker. And this was a program where they actually had, if you have cameras on your property or at your home, you can actually register your cameras. So when things occur in your neighborhood, they're able to see who has cameras on their street to better be able to see if anything was captured and so forth. Now, they don't have access to your video cameras, but they are aware of every street neighborhood where the cameras actually are. So if and when crimes are committed, they can actually go to that resident to see if their cameras caught any of the things like that. Also looking at strengthening the communication that we have with our HOAs and our police department, and looking at how we can actually put in place neighborhood associations for those communities that do not have a mandatory HOA. Again, to be able to create some sort of a web of communication and strengthen the communication with what's going on at the very granular level within our neighborhoods, to make sure that we are addressing the needs of each of our communities as it pertains to crime and making sure that those numbers don't continue to rise.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Proctor. This question is to the candidates running for place 7. We will start with Ms. Letitia Hughes. So, same question asked of the candidates running for mayor earlier. DeSoto has a slogan of One DeSoto. What are your plans to help unite the divided communities of DeSoto and help build trust among the residents of DeSoto?
I would like for us as a council to, I know we have meetings, but it's important to go out into the communities and really reach out to people. I believe in, walking the neighborhoods, getting out, getting to know people, letting them know us, being transparent, communication. That way we can show them that we are all one, and we all want the same goals, and we are here to hear you. We want to hear your voices. We're not untouchable. We want to feel what you're feeling. We want to implement whatever it is we need to improve our city, and always be fluid and transparent. So I really, really want to create relationships where we are able to communicate and come together as one.
All right, thank you. Mr. John McCaleb.
I think I answered that earlier by wanting to communicate in the district's area, take each one of the council area and do door knocking or put door knockers on there, try to just smother that particular area to make sure that we're being heard from those residents. We have to work together. And I went door knocking last week, and one man says, "Well, you're the first politician I've ever seen." So I think that it makes a difference in getting out and talking to people. And if they cannot communicate back with us, then we don't know what they're going or what they're attaining in their particular neighborhood. I feel like when we send out the water bill, that's sometimes the only way that people are being communicated with. Some people don't even know that the city has a website that they can look on a daily basis. I think that we just need to put out as much information as we can. I know the communications department is doing real well with COVID, but I think we could do more. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Graham?
My thoughts are quite simple. What I've heard is that we have an ideal community here. Nothing is wrong. Everything is great. We're doing marvelous. As I chat with people throughout the area, they seem to suggest that there is a very definite identity or image problem. It is a we, they type of attitude coming from the city. My thoughts are that this culture, must be changed if we are going to move DeSoto in a different direction. And the opportunity for the city is to create a culture where it is a client care culture. That meaning that residents of DeSoto, they are the client. The city leaders, they have to cater to the client. That's the way it's done in the real world. That does not appear to be the case, here. That needs to be changed. I think that it is, feasible, but that's certainly an issue. That's my thoughts about it.
Okay, thank you.
Judge,
Yes, ma'am.
it's 8:36 at this time, and just letting you know, we will allow the candidates to have 3 minutes also on their final remarks.
Okay, all right, well, one more question I think is on the minds of a lot of citizens. We'll start with the two candidates running for mayor. What are your vision or your thoughts as it relates to helping place DeSoto in a firmer financial position without raising taxes? Do you think that's possible? We'll start with you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir, for that question. I want to get on that question, but there's one last point I want to make in regard to the police department. I'm going to get to your answer. I wanted to let everyone know that we have a community police advisory board that is put together and make up of citizens here in DeSoto. So I just wanted to let you know about that. In regard to your question, you asked about the finance of the city and the health of the city. Is that my understanding, sir?
Yes, and do you think that anything can be done to help improve the city's financial footing without raising taxes?
Well, Mr. Sanders, Judge Sanders, over the last 7 years, the city has not raised its tax rate at all. And even this year, we didn't raise the tax rate. Our taxes for the city, and let's be clear as to what we are talking about. We're talking about the city tax rate. We're not talking about the school. We're not talking about the county. We're not talking about other aspect of your tax bill. To tell you the truth, we have increased our fund balance by over $3 million over the last year during the coronavirus. And you may ask, how did we do that? Well, like most of us, we are now shopping online. And in shopping online, there are taxes that are derived from those online shopping. And we have a number of companies in our industrial park area that are in fact shipping out items to people throughout the United States, and they are having to pay taxes on those items. And so those tax dollars are coming directly to us. In the midst of this virus that everyone is experiencing, our financial staff and our city manager has been extremely prudent when it comes to the dollars spent, to the point that we are able to assist and help our citizens with things that they are struggling with. Again, whether it be with water bill, their mortgage, their rent, their businesses. We have not really taken a hit, and nor have we passed on any cost to our citizens. And Judge Sanders, let me say this too. We have not cut services at all. We continue to provide high level of services to our citizens here, and we have not had any financial impact on our budget. We have a very strong financial statement that we have. We have financial reserve. Our levels are higher than they've ever been before. And so to try to answer your question, we are not having struggles when it comes to the finance of the city. And again, our tax rate here in DeSoto, the city tax rate, has not increased over the last 7 years.
All right, thank you. Ms. Proctor?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted there. I will echo that. Like I said, having served on council for those 6 years, our city tax rate did not increase. So I think it's imperative that we make that distinction when we talk about raising taxes and things of that nature. However, we do know that even though we have not had to—
Please finish your answer.
Sure. Can you repeat the question, Judge, just so we can all be back on the same page?
So the question you was addressing about how to make the city of DeSoto on a firmer financial footing without having to raise the taxes?
Sure, I'll kind of jump to some of the other things that I was saying, but ultimately the financial outlook on the city is good. During the time that I was there on council as well, we did not raise the tax rate. The tax rate remains steady, but you know, even due to the pandemic, possibly some of the revenues are down, possibly again as a result of the pandemic. Examples of that are the hotel occupancy tax fund, parks and recreation, because the number of people who actually use those services went down. However, I think, again, even though we have been blessed, I think, as a city to have a strong financial foundation due to many things that were done, you know, in years prior, I think it's still incumbent upon us to make sure that we are staying ahead of the curve when we talk about things, just in case we ever would have to be faced with a budget constraint. One of the initial measures I would take, actually, instead of looking at raising taxes, would actually be looking at cutting a percentage of the budget across each department. And so that way it causes the departments to trim the fat, and it forces you to look for ways as a city to be more efficient in how you operate. And I've seen a lot of times in business, when we're faced with making those choices, we really find out that we can operate more efficiently and on less than what we think, and actually experience a savings as a result of it. And so something else that I would actually look at considering versus raising taxes, if we're ever confronted with that particular situation, would be to also look at those positions of retirees or employees who quit and evaluate each of those positions in terms of necessity before refilling those positions again. And so something like reducing services or raising the tax rate would never be ideal, and that would only be a last resort measure should all measures attempted before that, you know, not be enough to get us through that particular constraint. But definitely the raising taxes and things like that, should we ever have to make that choice, would definitely be last on the list. And so I think there are lots of other things that we can do instead of that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Proctor. So we will now move to give the candidates a chance to give a closing remark. And that closing remark needs to speak to why the people of DeSoto should vote for you. So we will start these closing remarks with the candidates who are running for city council. And so, Mr. Calvin Graham, you can go first. Mr. Graham, are you still with us?
Hello, Mr. Graham. Let me see, it could have dropped during all this confusion. Let me see if I can get him back on.
Well, while we try and get Mr. Graham back on the line, Ms. Hughes, can you give your closing statements? Once again, telling voters why they should vote for you.
Good evening again. Thank you all for this great opportunity. I just want to say that I'm ready to go to work. I know my work ethic. I know that I'm open-minded. I know that I'm committed, efficient, innovative.
You dropped off. We're closing. Hold on, I'll put it back on.
And my temperament is that of Mayor McCarron, God rest her soul. Mayor McCowan, I apologize for the name. She was a jewel. She was an inspiration. I had an opportunity to meet her on several occasions, a couple of times without an appointment. One time when she was scheduled to be out of town, she did come to an event, and she's my inspiration. And I believe I have the temperament to work with people, to go out into the communities, to hear the people, and to act on their behalf. And I would like your vote.
All right, thank you. So is Mr. Graham on?
Yes, he's back on. Okay, hold on, let me see. Mr. Graham, are you there?
I can hear you, yes, but I didn't hear the question. It brought me out.
Okay.
So,
Here,
Mr. Graham, we're allowing the candidates to give a closing statement, and in that closing statement, you should tell the voters of DeSoto why they should vote for you.
Very simply, I think that, the numbers, speak for themselves. And when I talk about the numbers, I think all of the listeners are aware of where we are, DeSoto, with regard to our status right now. How are we trending right now? If you are okay with how we're trending, economic growth, economic development, education, all of the other services. If you're okay with that, then all is well. You know, my suggestion to you is that if you believe that there is something lacking, that we should be at another point, then you need to look at, new leadership that would bring to the table the progressive, the innovative type of business-oriented policy that would allow DeSoto to regain its position among the city, the municipalities around the area. I think that I provide, that opportunity. We know what happened in the past because we know where we are right now. The leadership in the past, apparently, for whatever reason, haven't been able to get us to where we need. I think I am your huckleberry, guys, to move to the next level. That's my point. Thank you.
All right. Mr. McCaleb, your turn.
Thank you. Well, I think my diverse 40 years of community involvement will make me more prepared to serve as your next city council member. From door knocking to get out the votes, to offices in the city of Dallas, the county, and the school board to get 5 acres of learning center, or in the park and development board that I currently am a member to get free Wi-Fi. I'm the person that can represent you. Thank you.
All right, so on to the 2 candidates running for mayor. In your closing statement, you should tell the voters why they should vote for you. And I also want to ask you to tell us real briefly, what do you want to accomplish in your first 60 days in office? And so we'll start with you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, Judge Sanders, and for the opportunity to be able to speak in regard to the city and why I should be selected as mayor. Let me tell you 4 things very quickly as to what I plan to do within the first 60 to 90 days. One of the things that I want to do, and we haven't touched on it, and that is address the needs of our millennials. What I like to do is create an ad hoc committee that addresses the needs of our millennials, those who are living right here in our city. Oftentimes feel left out, oftentimes feel as if they're not being heard. But they are a very strong voice, but not only that, they are our leaders and our future leaders here in the city. So within my first 60 to 90 days, I plan to create a millennium, or let's say 40 and younger ad hoc board. Another thing that I want to do within that first 60 days is going back to looking at those ordinances that I talked about, because I think that's very important. Because if we're going to change our city and we're going to open it up for business, we must first look at what's keeping it closed. And I'm convinced that if we get together and revisit the orders that's on the book and remove those, we can remove some of the obstacles that is preventing business from coming here. Another thing that I want to do is put together a committee of local developers, not outside developers, companies like Wildwood and others who constantly wanting to do business and have done business here in the past with us, and let them work with us to try to eliminate some of the obstacles that are there. One last thing I want to do is I want to have what's called the DeSoto Beautification Day on a quarterly basis, where we get our HOAs out into the community or their subdivision, and it becomes a day of beautiful, in which all of our HOAs spend time going through their community. Now, and I hope I have time to say this last thing. You know, back about a decade ago, DeSoto ISD had a slogan that was called "Expect Success." Back in that time, our neighborhoods were the best. Our schools were the envy in our county. Leadership was impeccable, but somehow we've lost it. Somehow we lost that swagger that we once had. Oftentimes what we see now about DeSoto is negative images, and I'm tired. I'm tired of letting others decide who we are. DeSoto is a beautiful city. It's resilient and it's smart. The students are creative and they are nationally known. Our churches are spirit-filled and focused. Our communities are strong. Our city has so much spirit within it. The city has worked very hard to get this message out and take it out into the city and to the other community. We need a leader. We need a leader who can champion our city, who can literally be the
I'm sorry.
mayor and
Yes,
bring.
All right, so thank you,
I
Mr.
am that guy. Just let me conclude. I am that guy to lead our city. I am.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, Ms. Proctor.
Yes, thank you so much. Tonight was excellent and much needed. So I definitely appreciate the opportunity to share with the community. And we touched on a lot, but I encourage you to choose the DeSoto that you envision. And so what that means is choosing a candidate that looks to you for your ideas, to implement them in a detailed, methodical way forward. It's about being proactive and being accountable to you, which are the people that we serve. And so I'm passionate about working with you and creating a vision and a path to move forward. Now, in terms of your question about what is the plan for the first 60 days, I think that's a very important question because we all know that this is a special election. And so there will be only about 18 months on that particular term. And so it is incumbent upon the mayor to actually create a plan to be able to get straight to work within those first 60 days. And so the thing for me is some of the things that I would like to do goes back to my ultimate plan of taking us back to the basics. And that is first, accountability. Again, that means transparent financial practices and open city government. Again, you should feel comfortable coming to your mayor, coming to your council with your concerns and knowing that they're going to be heard, as well as returning to those fundamental principles that made us an all-America city in the first place. B, bringing everybody together. We do have a great start with our city strategic plan, but let's take that from concept to implementation and do that with input from all of the stakeholders in the community. And moreover, this pandemic did not end with the new year. We've got to come together collectively to be able to consider the ways that our most vulnerable populations have been impacted by this and come up with solutions. Lastly, communication. This looks like building a bridge between the city council and our school district so that we can better serve our residents. Now, I'm asking for your vote on February 2nd. And I understand how important personal connection is in the middle of this pandemic. And when somebody's asking for your vote, it's important that they're responsive, that they're available, and that they are accessible because your vote is one of your most powerful things that you possess. And so for that reason, I have actually cleared my schedule on Tuesdays and Thursdays up until the election for personal one-on-one calls with DeSoto residents. And so you can go to my website, rachelfordesoto.com. I actually renamed my Zoom screen here and you can see my website address. Review all of our available times, as well as book your time to talk with me personally leading up to the election. Everything will be virtual and all of that. And so Dynamic DeSoto was so gracious to provide you all with my bio, but you can also get more information about my platform, upcoming events, and more information at that rachelfordesoto.com website, as well as all of my social media platforms. Again, I'm asking for your vote. Rachel Proctor, I'm #1 on the ballot. Come out to vote, and I will see you guys at the poll. Thanks, and have a great night.
All right. So we want to thank all the candidates who took time out of their schedule tonight to present themselves and their platform to the citizens of DeSoto. And we also want to thank Dynamic DeSoto for setting up this forum to give the candidates a chance to present themselves and also to give the residents a chance to learn more about the candidates who are running for mayor and the candidates who are running for City Council Place 7. So once again, I want to thank all of you, and I definitely want to wish you well as we close out this candidate forum.
Before we close out, Judge,
Ms. Harrison?
I do have a few announcements that I want to make. That many of the, I hope many of the, let's see now, where is it now? It's gone. Hold on. I have some announcements regarding when the additional forums are going to be and the like. Let me just see if I can post it right quickly. Okay.
Just go online. See.
Okay. Oh, one moment.
Don't. There's a computer like that on somebody. Maybe it's taking too long.
Hold on just a minute. Okay, for some reason I'm just gonna let it slide here. I can't seem to get this screen off. I don't want to lose you. Let me see what I have here. I've been practicing on a new computer and it's causing me. But let me just move right along. First off, the candidates, can you see the screen? Can you see the screen, Judge?
No, we can't. We can't see this. We can't see it.
Can't see it? Okay,
No.
hold on. Let me see what.
Chat, if you want to read the chat.
I was wondering why it's not letting me do my share on here. Let me share. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Now you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Basically,
Can you make it bigger?
it's supposed to be, and my problem is for some reason I'm trying to see why it's not letting me do my screen appropriately.
Did you hit share screen?
Yes, I did hit share. Right now, it's not allowing me to do my.
Click on slideshow and then start.
Yeah, the problem is not that. The problem is the controls are in front of that.
At the bottom of the screen, if you hit the share, it'll do it at the bottom of the screen, bottom right.
The share has been moved.
Okay.
It's in another location. But anyway.
Her controls.
Can you see it? Can you see it at all? Is it small, very small?
No, it's off now.
It's off, can't see anything.
I mean, I think you should just read what you.
Well, I think I'm just gonna have to go ahead on and read it because it's supposed to have been down there too. But there aren't that many announcements, just a couple of announcements that I wanted to bring to your attention. And that is that there are 3 forums. This was the first of 3 forums. The next one is going to be on Saturday. Saturday on the 9th at 9:30 a.m. Can you see those at all?
Ms. Harrison, just read it to us.
Okay. And then Thursday, January the 14th, you're going to have another one for the DeSoto Chamber of Commerce at 7 p.m. Those are all going to be available. The next item that I want to make sure that you're aware of is that early voting is going to be starting on January the 20th. And there are various times that there's going to be on the 20th through the 23rd. It's going to be at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Then January 24th is 1 to 6. And then January 25th is 8 to 5. And January 28th, 29th is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So it's very important that y'all make sure you check your calendars or check with the city regarding the various times in which they're going to have the early voting. It's not going to be consistent. The actual election day, that would be the only thing it's going to traditionally from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Everything's going to be held at DCC3, as we know, which is the Disciple Central Community Church and 901 North Polk Street. Of course, we said the actual election date is going to be on February 2nd. The last item that we want to bring to your attention is that, believe it or not, as we're talking about voting in some people to be city council people, there actually it's going to be open for the place on ballots starting January 13th. So, and that will be running through February the 12th. So on May 1st, we will be having another election. And that's going to be for, I believe, place 6 and 7. So I did want to bring that to your attention. Those are critical components that for us to do what we're doing tonight. And then last, of course, I just want to say that I appreciate all of you that came out tonight and your contributions and giving your time, even your patience. When things go wrong, they go wrong, but we just keep being strong. And I can't say enough, Judge Sanders, for your being our moderator tonight and keeping us on focus, and the expertise you brought. It was surely a divine intervention for you to be on this panel tonight. Thank you again to all the candidates, Mayor Pro Tem Moore, and former Mayor Pro Tem Proctor. We cannot tell you enough how much we respect all of you. Mr. Hughes, Mr. Calf, and Mr. Graham, for also being with us this evening. On behalf of Dynamic Desoto, we wish you well, and most of all, we challenge you to continue to be our leaders. Even if at this particular time, we can only have one winner, but we can always have champions in our city. Thank you, everyone. May God be with you. God bless America and our country. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
God bless.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Wow.